Hello and welcome into a brand new crossover episode of Patriots Beat Patriots Daily. That's right, we are back. It's been, I think, since training camp since we've done a crossover episode. Originally, the plan was to do one at the quarter pole of the season, and then there was just a lot going on. Taylor usually begs me to do these just about every week, but this team's given us so much to talk about. He hasn't needed the extra content, so it kind of got pushed back, but we did want to give you one. Sorry to throw you under the bus there, Taylor. I think that people should know that Taylor is fighting for them. I'm the bad guy there. You're the one fighting for the people trying to get more crossovers. I don't want to water down a good product. I was against the NFL adding a 17th game. I was against them adding extra playoff games. I believe you can have too much of a good thing. That's where I stand. But we're here for a mid-season crossover. Alex, Barth, Brian, Hines, Mike Kadlick, Taylor Kyles. How we doing, gentlemen?
Great.
Doing well.
You guys see how good the Pats are playing this year? It's crazy.
Pretty good.
Yeah, 7-2.
We're going to talk a lot about that. This is going to be kind of a big picture thing. I don't know if Mike and Taylor, if you guys already did your Tampa preview or if you're going to do it. Brian and I will have ours tomorrow. You guys did a trade deadline reaction. Brian, I don't think either of our trade deadline reactions are that epic. Surprised they didn't add depth. Not much more beyond that. Wasn't expecting a big splash. So we're going to kind of keep this bigger picture instead. I just have some kind of big picture topics I want your guys' thoughts on over the start of the season. And then we'll kind of look ahead as well. Should we get started?
Let's do it.
Ready to rock.
All right, we'll start with.
Wait, hold on. Are we getting point systems today, or what's
Are
going
we doing
on?
the points? The points
we haven't
are
done
a
around
lot.
the horn in a while.
When you get another person do the points, if I pull this up, I'd have to set the whole thing up. Well, how about this? At the end of the episode, Amit or whoever's listening from the producer side, post a poll on Twitter. Who won the crossover, Brian, Mike, or Taylor? And we'll let the people decide who won the crossover. So put that up at the end of the episode and we'll do that. So those of you watching live and, leave it up for 24 hours so people who catch it later can do that too. We will start with Taylor though. Biggest positive surprise from the first half of the season. Biggest surprise in a good way from the first half of the season for you for the Patriots.
I'd say how well the wide receivers were playing. And I think it was trending that way a bit. And we could see that this was going to be a group that was probably different than what we'd seen in recent seasons around mid to late summer, especially I think after that Minnesota practice where even Efton Chisholm was doing pretty well. And it's like, all right, this feels a little different. They're doing it against a different team. And as we know, since the season started, obviously Drake is having an outstanding season, but you cannot be in the MVP conversation if you don't have guys that you're throwing to and obviously protecting, but throwing to specifically that are doing their jobs very well. And Kayshon Boutte breaking out, Demario Douglas finally being used as a deep threat that I feel like we've been talking about he could be since he got here. But that first year, how many times did Mac underthrow or overthrow the kid and he's streaking wide open? That Jets game is seared into my brain. And Kyle Williams, man, he goes up against AJ Terrell last week, and obviously it didn't look great on the stat sheet, but he was getting open. So this isn't the Tyquan Thornton thing of what's going on? He doesn't look like he knows what he's doing. Sure, there's probably some things to tighten up, but even he looks good. Chisholm's still riding the bench, and when he's contributed a bit, kind of in that Mac Hollins role. So I've been really surprised by that group and how effective and trustworthy they've been.
Mike.
So is this players or just any sort of storyline?
Any positive surprise?
Their ability to win ugly games. They had the one early against Miami where they did not play their best. They turned the ball over a couple times. They got a little lucky with, I think it was Achane stepped out of bounds on that long touchdown, but they were able to gut that one out. And then you saw it again last week against Atlanta, where they played good early, or they played well early, and then the wheels started to fall off down the stretch. They had that ugly 4-minute drive where they went 3 and out and had to punt it, and then again they get whether it's lucky, whether it's play good defenses on the other end of there. Penix has the intentional grounding, and then they're able to actually ice the game the following drive. So just the way that they've I get not giving up is kind of too cliche, but just that they grind it out to the end. And you don't normally see that with teams this young having this quick of a bounce back, right? I feel like they would win the games they're supposed to, and then maybe lose a couple close ones here. But so far they've been able to win ugly, and I think that's exactly what you have to do in the NFL to kind of get over the hump. So that's definitely been the biggest surprise for me.
It's a good one, Brian.
Well, I was thinking wide receiver room because they have just blown me away. They've been awesome to watch, and Todd Downing leading that room deserves a lot of credit. But I'm sitting here third in the pecking order, and Drake May hasn't gone yet, so I'm going to take Drake May.
I saved
Maybe
it
it
for
wasn't
you.
a surprise to any of us. Maybe we knew this was happening.
Look, I
MVP Drake.
think everyone, if you were watching us during draft coverage, knows how high I was on Drake May. But if you told me 8 games into his second season that he would be in the top 3 for MVP candidate, like even that is surprising me a little bit. So he has been outstanding to start the year. There has been, some things I still think that there can be improvements on. We talked about the sacks a lot, and he mentioned that, how many sacks he's taking. So there's room to grow. But I think as we talk about this team, right, Barth, we've talked about this on our show, like the conversation has changed, right, where it's not big picture anymore. It's like these little details that can, what needs to improve to make them a contender in the playoffs, not just, to get back to playoffs. And I think that's kind of where we're at with Drake because he's playing so good. Now we're just picking apart the little details of his game, like taking more sacks. So the fact that, we're 7-2, 9 games in, and he's top 5, top 3 MVP candidate, like he's just been awesome.
So that's a good one. I was, Kayshawn Boutte, Taylor, you said receivers that, Pop, I expect a lot from. I was excited for Diggs. I expected a lot for Pop. Kayshawn Boutte's been a big surprise to me, but I'll go kind of a little off the board here too. I'm legitimately surprised we're not actively, maybe second guessing isn't the right word, but we're not going back and bringing back any of the veteran cuts they made this offseason. And I didn't think it would be all of them, but whether it's David Andrews, whether it's Joe Cardona, Jabril Peppers, Devon Gautreaux, and no disrespect to any of these guys, but I had kind of said at the time, okay, they're clearly trying to reset the room, and it's not we think this guy can play and this guy can't. They just wanted the clean reset, and I think I said at the time, some will probably work, some probably won't, and we'll see which are which. Now, Garrett Bradbury's a little banged up here today. He didn't practice, so maybe if Jared Wilson gets in at center and struggles a little bit, this could change in the second half. But at no point have we really been, man, if they had Joe Cardona today, man, if they had Devon Gautreaux today, man, if they had Juwan Bentley today, maybe I'm forgetting something. And maybe there were like brief moments in training camp. Since week 1, has there really been a moment where we look back at any of those kind of surprise veteran cuts they made and been like, yeah, they shouldn't have done that. They could really use this guy right now. Because I really can't think of one. I didn't think we'd regret all of them, but I also didn't think we'd regret none of them. I figured there'd be 1 or 2 that would kind of loom large, and they really haven't, which I find surprising, unless I'm missing one.
No, I think back, you hit on both safeties. Keon and Doug are fresh, but like those guys were
so
here.
I'm not counting those because those moves
okay.
were just made. I'm more so going back to the overhaul in the offseason.
The only one maybe, like, was anyone clamoring for like Juwan Bentley during the first 2 weeks when they kept missing a bunch of tackles and Robert Spillane didn't look great? Like, was that
maybe a little bit? But I think it was.
I don't even think we went back to
Spillane
his name
to be better.
No.
Yeah, I think it was more Spillane needs to be better. If there's one person, frankly, that's I think has come up, it was Joe Milton for 5 minutes after Drake hit his head, and that was it. Oh, I was getting tweets about that. This is why you don't trade. And Drake came back in and he was fine. And Josh Dobbs even made a really good play where he shook that defender off on the 3rd down. So for like half a second, and it wasn't even one of the old guys. That's my biggest surprise. Not that it's, I thought there'd be 1 or 2. I didn't think we'd regret all of them. I thought there'd be 1 or 2, but they've replaced those guys very well. It's no disrespect to those guys, but it hasn't really come up. But we'll see in the second half again. The Garrett Bradbury injury looms large there a little bit. All right, let's go the other way. Mike, we'll start with you. Biggest bad surprise, biggest thing you weren't expecting that's a negative.
It's bounced back a little bit, especially last week, but I feel like the lack of, Travion Henderson being like a dynamic playmaker that we all thought, that was really he is, he's on the rise here now. I agree, but like we were in the summer watching him, return kicks and going for long touchdowns, being like, this kid's going to be a star. And, Taylor, I know you tweeted about his fantasy impact the other day, but like, people were drafting him like super high in fantasy drafts because of what we saw from him in the offseason and just how electric of a player he was. And it just hasn't hit yet. And I think, Mike Vrabel continues to say he's going to be a big part of this. But we've talked about it a lot on Pat's Daily, where the rookie running back with Josh McDaniels has not been there's not a good hit rate on it. It kind of takes them a year to get used to the system and understand kind of what they're looking for here. And it looks like even it was a couple games where when Ramondre was fully healthy, like Travion was getting heavily outsnapped by guys in the room. So he's getting his chance now. I'm actually looking, and I didn't even realize that he actually leads them in rushing yards. He has more rushing yards than Ramondre on the season, given the last week's game. But I still would have liked to see more from him, both out of the backfield as a runner and as a receiver as well.
Brian.
I'm going to go their man coverage. And, you go back to when they signed Carlton Davis and they had that introductory press conference. Rabel threw out the cat coverage, right? You get that cat, he'll get this cat with Gonzo and Carlton Davis. And then, Gonzo got hurt. So maybe that complicated some of it in the summer and then to start the year. But he comes back really, he has the Panthers game, but then that Buffalo game, they get in their face. They're playing a lot of man, obviously very successful. And then after that, it kind of dies down a little bit with their man coverage usage. They weren't very productive playing man coverage, one of the worst teams in the league at it. And then even schematically, I think we've all talked about this, like how they are just running their man coverage and, not providing help in the middle of the field, prioritizing bringing that guy on a rusher and truly putting those corners on like islands, when we all think Christian Gonzalez is like one of the best cover corners in football, but playing on a true island is a very tough task. Now, I will say, I think we might have saw a little bit of positive progress in that Falcons game, right? Like there were times Gonzalez was locked on to Drake London in the slot. You saw Marcus Jones traveling with Bijan Robinson a little bit, and it seemed like they did put a little bit more support in the middle of the field as well. So in between the 20s, the red zone was still a little bit of a mess. In between the 20s, much better against the Falcons in man coverage. So hopefully that starts that positive trend. But to date, I haven't been overly impressed with the man coverage, which we thought was going to be a strength with this defense.
Taylor.
I'll go ball security, specifically the fumbles. Now, credit to the wide receivers and tight ends. They have been excellent in this department, and they deserve credit for that. The backfield has disappointed, and I think we've seen kind of worst-case scenarios for all of them. Ramondre Stevenson, what did we talk about? It's like, okay, he may fumble, but don't fumble twice in a game. Fumbles twice in a game in Buffalo. Travion Henderson. Alex, when's the last time Travion Henderson fumbled in a game? Before?
Fumbled was freshman year of college. He hadn't lost a fumble since high school.
And he loses it on a day where he finally breaks out and is literally about to score a touchdown. And
on the goal line, yeah.
And on his best run of the day where he breaks free, he actually gets the ball punched out. I think it's the sneakiest. It didn't go down in the record books, but you could see by the way he reacted that the ball did come out at some point. And Drake, where we talk about the things he can't do, taking the hand off the football. We know that Josh McDaniels has harped on 2 hands on the ball. Plenty of examples of him doing it in beautiful fashion, like against the Saints. You think about him kind of hitching up and moving the ball away. Like he's gotten better, but you've also had instances like in the Steelers game where he doesn't put 2 hands on the ball and he holds onto it and it's a disastrous fumble. And then, okay, he learns from that. He's on the streak of not really putting the ball in harm's way. And then last week, you have him. I understand you want to make a guy miss, but as we've talked about, Mike, you can't do that when you are in the pocket. You cannot stiff arm someone going backwards. He gets the ball punched out, and thank God for Will Campbell making the tackle, but that almost led to a complete disaster scenario. So I just need to see more ball security from these guys because every player in the backfield, and even Antonio Gibson had his fumbles before he got hurt, unfortunately. So they need to tighten that up because I think if they do, obviously, Drake holding on to the ball and taking sacks is its own problem, but that helps you so much more if you at least maintain possessions. Then the next issue is not going backwards. But I've just been kind of surprised at how bad it's been at points for each of those ball carriers.
It's a good one, Taylor. I don't think it's something we expected to be. We didn't think that it would necessarily be a plus for them, but I don't think we expected it to be as bad as it is, especially the error repeating element of it. And how guys have continued to struggle. I'm with Brian, though. I thought they were going to be a lockdown man coverage team, and they just haven't gotten there. Maybe they do in the second half, but I was kind of counting on that. All right, pull up the schedule. We're going to go back through. I want 3 games from you guys. We're going to do these one at a time. And this is kind of to lead us into talking about the second half of the season. We'll start off, Brian, with you. What is... And I mean this in terms of how the team looked, not necessarily the most entertaining or your favorite. I mean, you can mention those if you want, but in terms of how the team looked, what is the best game the Patriots have played in 2025?
All right, I'm pulling up the schedule very quickly. I'm just gonna go with that Bills game off the bat, just because I think the environment, prime time, going to Buffalo, it was loud, noisy environment. Like I think that said a lot. Even though the offense kind of struggled out of the gate, you saw a fast defensive start against the best quarterback they've played this year, and then to end the game with Drake May getting his first game-winning drive, big couple throws on that. You saw the one to Diggs and then the honey hole shot to Kayshon Boutte, and then you end it with Andy Borregales' big field goal. Like, they didn't necessarily start fast, but it was a tough environment. And then the way they finished against a really good opponent, I'll go that Bills game.
Taylor.
I think I'll go with the Titans game because it was maybe their most well-rounded performance outside. I think the Panthers is definitely up there, but that's not what I'm picking. I think that might have been their most well-rounded, but this was a game where it truly felt like they handled business for the vast majority of the game. Drake spread the ball around. He had his great highlight moments. I'm looking at the stats. I don't think they had a turnover. Let me double check.
Against the Titans, they did not.
They didn't have a turnover. They forced 2 turnovers. I think that was one where it's like, yeah, that wasn't a great team, but it wasn't even like the Browns where it kind of felt like you did let them back in the game when you really did need to. They struggled out of the gate, but then they put the clamps on and they never let them off, and the offense really did kind of take over. In the fourth quarter, you had the game in the bag. So I'm going to go with Tennessee.
Mike.
I will say Carolina. Taylor threw it in there a little bit there, but the fact that they came off of that Pittsburgh game that, I mentioned winning ugly games, an ugly game they didn't win against Pittsburgh when it was turnovers and fumbles galore, to come back the next week at home and just, Taylor, you'll like this one, just push the Panthers shit in, was outstanding. And Drake throws 2 touchdowns. He runs for another. They hold Carolina to 13 points and not even turn the football over. They didn't have a pick on Bryce Young. They didn't force a fumble. They only had 1 sack on him, but they still won 42-13 and just won a game they absolutely should have, and frankly had to after starting the season 1-2. They came and showed Carolina who was boss. And looking back at it now, it felt like that was them, just beating up on a poor team. But Carolina's 5-4 now on a winning record. Now teams change, and they're not the same team they were however many weeks ago. But that I thought was them just being like, no, we're here, and we're here to stay in the NFL. So
no, Mike, it's a great point. I'm between Carolina and Buffalo for this. I think Buffalo, I think they played both games at a really high level. The Carolina game was a little bit cleaner, but it was against less of a competitive opponent. Although the more we go on in the season, that win looks better and better. Mm-hmm. Those 2 games, and those were back to back. I think they just played very, very high level football. I think that was, to their point, the ceiling. Not that they were bad after, but I think those are the best games they've played. All right, let's flip it. Taylor, what's the worst game they've played this season?
Of course, this is the one I get.
Well, you were gonna get asked it one way or the other.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. I think I have to say the Steelers. Like, even just looking at the raw numbers, like, it's bad. Drake May was their leading rusher with 45 yards. Obviously, there were so many turnovers, and that was a game. I'm glad it happened in retrospect, because I think it was the kick in the butt they needed at that point in the season to be like, we really are better than this, and we need to look like it because this is embarrassing. And it was embarrassing because that was one kind of like last week where you should have blown that team out. And to your point, Mike, you talked about how Panthers are looking better. Well, the Steelers, they're not perfect, but they're very competitive. They at least look like the Steelers that we've come to know, where they have their problems, but they're still probably going to make a playoff push. And you could have really spanked them in that game and just decided to throw up in your lap and give it away. So I've got to say that's the worst. But I'm glad it happened because, again, it seemed like a wake-up call for them.
Mike.
The Raiders blow, and they came in here and Geno Smith threw the ball all over you and has looked like a disaster since, not just Geno Smith, but that entire team. And I mean, again, seriously, like, I joke, but that team sucks, and they just came in here and walloped you.
They
fundamentally
suck.
And I think that's why it's the worst. But at the same time, the Patriots were still trying to find their groove. Like, clearly Drake May wasn't nearly as comfortable in the offense as he was even the next week or has come to as the MVP candidate he's turned into. But to start the season off like that at home against the Raiders team that, again, is 2-6 and blows, that wasn't a great start for them at all.
Brian.
Yeah, I mean those two. I think with the turnovers and the Steelers. But I'll just to throw a different game like last week against the Falcons. Like you're up 21-7 and you have the ball going down. You could double score and put that game away. But instead, Drake May fumbles, gives the Falcons 3 points, and then they come out and just cannot move the football at all in the second half and let the Falcons come back in that game. So they obviously won, right? Unlike those other two, but just it was not clean, and they did have the chance to just kind of put that game away, and they weren't able to do that.
I think the second half against the Falcons was their worst half of football this year. It's a good pick, Brian. I am going to go with the Raiders game, though. It's week 1. The NFL is weird, but the thing that stands out about the Raiders game to me, they played differently. Stylistically, it was different on both sides of the ball, and maybe they needed that. I think they kind of used that game as an experiment, especially on offense. Okay, here's what we want to do. Here's what we don't want to do. They start going more to the outside zone stuff in week 2. They start running more boot in week 2. We see the wide receiver usage change a little bit. I think they needed that Raiders game as a feeling out process, but the Steelers game wasn't great because of the turnovers. I thought they were okay around that, and that team was still, I think, similar to what we've seen more or less week in and week out. If you go back and you watch that week 1 game now, the team kind of looks unrecognizable to what they are now. So that one really stands out. I have one more game I want to ask you about, but first, Mike's got something to tell you guys.
Let's talk about PrizePicks because, as you all know, this crossover and every crossover here on the CLNS Media Network is brought to you by PrizePicks. The hard-hitting football action is even better on PrizePicks, and although the weather might be changing, the feeling of being right never gets old. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. So if you want to pick more on Drake May's passing yards, rushing yards, and touchdowns, you can now put them all in the same lineup, and that is only on PrizePicks. So don't wait. Download the app today. Use code CLNS, and you will get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code CLNS on the PrizePicks app, and you'll get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right.
All right, so I said I had one more game I wanted to ask you about, and you're going to need to get a little creative with this, but your creative thinking cap on Brian, right? Yeah, it's Brian's turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it's Brian's turn.
You are Brian?
I guess.
I am Brian Hines.
Yeah,
I am Brian Hines.
That's right. What game do you think is the best reflection of who the 2025 Patriots are? Not just who they've been, but who they are. Granted, they have more football to play, but if you had to point to one game and say, this is the best summary of what this team is, their identity, their strengths, their weaknesses, all of that, which game would you pick?
You're really testing my shitty memory.
Oh boy, yeah, you do have to put this.
Do you want me to go first? I'll give you mine first. I wanted to put a hard
one
on here. I think it's the Browns game. I think that Browns game is who they are. They started slow, came on strong before the half, really good third quarter, pulled away. I think that their youth got exposed at times, especially on the offensive line. But when they needed Drake May and the receivers to make plays, Drake May and the receivers made plays. The run game was serviceable, but it wasn't good by any means. And they did a good job defensively of taking away the other team's best weapons. I think that checks a lot, and it was a well-coached game. I think it just checks a lot of the boxes, positive and negative, of the things we've talked about with this team in the big picture. So, again, not their best game, not their worst game, but I think what is the most representative of who this team is at its core? I think it's that Browns game.
Oh, actually,
all right.
Go ahead, Brian.
I'll go the Saints game. Slow start. Sorry.
I'm just gonna do it too because
That's why you can use. Look, we only have 8 games. We're probably gonna double up.
Like slow start out of the gate. You give up a huge explosive on the first play of the game, right? But then you
on
come
a corner
back,
blitz.
Like your offense is anchored by Drake May throwing the ball deep, right? Some big completions to Kayshon Boutte and Pop Douglas, and then you have a lead. But in the second half, things kind of slow down, but you buckle down when you need to. You can't get the run game going, but when you need one play, you put it in the hands of Drake May, and he goes to Kayshon Boutte to kind of ice that game. So I think there were a lot of just factors in that game that have been, big themes for this team. So I'll go with that Saints game. Sorry.
You know why else that's a good summation of this season? The refs were obnoxious in that game. So you get that angle too. Taylor, why do you think the Saints game?
I'll add the fact that Spencer Rattler had a good game. And my fear for this defense is that at some point they're like, when they play a quarterback, like if they ever end up going up against Mahomes, who will take the small things and just like dink and dunk and just let you kind of walk down the field. And that's where this defense is weak, is where you kind of just like, they're getting chunks, aren't they? Like they're running for 4 yards, they pass for 7. And we know that they've been better tackling and shutting down those checkdowns. But I think a smart quarterback who can do that tick, 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 and then eventually you get greedy. And they've done a good job, I think, not really taking the cheese. But when you get to the red zone, I was talking to Evan about it today. We can be critical of how they played in the red zone, but the issue isn't that they're giving up the touchdowns; it's that they're letting teams get inside the 5. To a point where it's like, yeah, they're probably going to score because they're an NFL offense. You kind of screwed yourself because you put yourself in a spot where you have a 10% chance of victory. And that's how I felt when the Saints had success in that game. It's just like Spencer Rattler is playing like a grown man. He's taking what you give him, and at times it felt like the run game also kind of gave a little bit, but overall they were tight. So that was what I have to add. But other than that, yeah, Brian knocked it out of the park.
Mike, what do you got?
I'll throw the Tennessee game in here. I know Taylor mentioned it as just how it was their best game, but how they want to win, right? Drake May throws 2 touchdowns. He's incredibly efficient. A long bomb to Kayshon Boutte. On the opposite side, they got after Cam Ward and sacked him 5 times. Now that hasn't happened this year, but I think that's how they want to ultimately play as a pass rush. They turned the football over. Marcus Jones had an interception, and they ran the ball hard. Stevenson, 88 yards and a touchdown on the ground, and a couple explosive plays, both by him and May, who also ran for 60-plus yards. So used his legs. Unfortunately, didn't take care of himself, which has also kind of been a theme for him a little bit this year. You want him to be better there. Stephon Diggs was their leading receiver, 7 catches, 69 yards, something that they've wanted to do and has sort of been their identity on offense as well. So I think all around, I know that moving forward and kind of what they want to be, I'm sure that they want to, playing against a Tennessee team that's one of the worst in football as well, another team on their schedule that blows. They got it done in that game, and I think they did it. Also, holding them on the ground to only 39 yards rushing was a huge plus in that one too.
All right, thank you guys for taking part in that exercise. Again, little outside the box, but you see what I was going for there? I feel like that's a good one.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah, all right. One more on the first half, and then I got a couple quick ones looking forward. Taylor, what has been the most underappreciated storyline from this team? Something that has not gotten talked about, not gotten enough attention through the first half.
That's a good question. I'll go with the interior defensive line depth. Because even like Khyiris Tonga is getting a lot of attention now.
So I was going to say, does Khyiris Tonga still count for this after last week? Because I feel like in the last week, his stock has gone way up.
When your third string defensive tackle / nose tackle is getting a tweet from Mina, / fullback now, is getting a tweet from Mina Kimes, which you got like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Like, I think you are officially on the map. Mina does a great job, like giving attention to people like that. But now you're national. You're a big shot. But it's also the fact that Corey Durden is top 10 in pass rush win rate as a primary run defender, where you'll see if you watch him, when he gets his pass rush opportunities, he just puts guys on skates, or sometimes he just kind of throws them out of the way. It's pretty impressive to watch. And he's one of those dudes who just quietly goes about his business. Like, I tried to go up to him in the locker room and be like, bro, I told him about pass rush win rate like a jackass. And he was just like, oh, he did not care. I was just like, I mean, the numbers show you're playing really well. And Joshua Farmer, man, he's playing pretty well too. Not a great athlete, so he's not going to pop up in terms of the pass rush wins all the time. But you're starting to see him do some things on games. His awareness is good. He's been one of their best run defenders. Like, they have people, I don't think people know they have whole packages where Barmore and Milton Williams aren't on the field for like multiple plays, and they still get quality execution from those guys. And the pass rush falls off a bit, but it's not like years past where it's Lawrence Guy and Devon Gottschall, and there's literally no pass rush at all on play action. So, yeah, that interior defensive line depth has been fantastic. And there's names that we don't even get to talk about every week.
I mean,
Mike,
Barth, we were just saying yesterday, like, or whenever we did our last show, like the defensive line rotations, like they rotate in pairs. Like, they're so confident in those guys that they'll take Barmore and Williams off the field at a time to put those two guys on, or a combination of those. So I agree. Like, that's been a good game.
No, it's a good one, Taylor. I was going to say Tonga as a whole, just like his play, but that whole group absolutely deserves credit. Mike, what do you got?
I'll just say the underappreciated is the what we're going with.
Yeah, or under talked about, like just not getting enough attention. And it can be good or bad.
The transition of not power, but having to go from Terrell Williams, who is unfortunately dealing with cancer, to Zach Core being
That's a good one.
essentially the de facto defensive coordinator, not only an inside linebackers coach, but having to take on a significant role and a significant change multiple times since this new regime came in, right? Because Williams was out in the offseason, then he came back and they tried to do it. And when you have like multiple, I guess, people in charge, it can get kind of dicey. Not that there's a power struggle, but who do we listen to here? Who's saying what? Who's calling the plays? Even though they're running the same defense, their styles of play calling can potentially be different, and that can kind of mess with the whole mojo on the defensive side. So I know that there's been questions about maybe them not getting enough maybe pressure on the quarterback, or at least tallying sacks. We mentioned the man coverage earlier. But all in all, the defense has been really solid in what's been kind of a rocky and unfortunate start to them with Terrell Williams and the Zach Core situation.
Can I mention one quick thing about the pass rush, just because it came up? Brandon Thorne, who does a great job covering the trenches, mostly known for offensive line, but he does defensive line as well. And he had a list. He tracks like high quality pressure, so it's even more in depth really than what you kind of get from PFF. Milton Williams is tied for the most high quality pressures in the NFL. Barmore's up there as well, and Calebon Chason is there too. Like we talked about, there's rotations where Milton Williams does not play, and mostly those are run situations, but he's been incredible, dog. And that's considering he also gets pressures because other people are creating them for him. So he's benefiting from other people and doing it on his own and being efficient. Like, bro, people didn't know if he could necessarily live up to his contract. And I remember looking back and saying he used to be an elite run defender. Now he's like a really good pass rusher with another really good defensive tackle. It felt like the stars were aligning for him to play like this and continue what he showed last year, and he has. So, I mean, to that point, like the pass rush has been pretty good, and Core is putting them in position to succeed when he doesn't ask Milton Williams to drop into coverage.
They've been doing that less and less. Remember, they dropped both him and Barmore.
They're doing it. That's
what's
happening.
In the opener, it was him and Barmore on third down.
Tonga's done it too.
Well, Tonga's going to get a pick six eventually. I have faith.
I mean, I literally said it because there was I forget, some defensive tackle did it and like did this. Oh, was it Vita Vea? Was it Vita Vea?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and he did the seatbelt celebration. I was like, Milton, is that the vision? He was like, bro, if I do, I'm gonna get real insufferable. You don't have
to sell it to me. I've been anti-defensive lineman in coverage since they manned up prime Le'Veon Bell with Trey Flowers on third down in like 2015 or whatever that was, and that went exactly how you'd expect. So I keep letting them get after the quarterback. You can get too disguisey. I do believe that. Brian, your most appreciated storyline.
I'll go one player on the defensive side of the ball that didn't get talked about, and Craig Woodson. They just take this guy in the fourth round and they say, we don't need Jabril Peppers, Kyle Duggar. We're just going to play this rookie 98% of the defensive snaps so far. And it hasn't always been perfect, but the fact that he's, playing that role, and Taylor, we were talking about it today, like he is fearless coming downhill. Like they can stop the run in some of these light boxes because Craig Woodson is just firing downhill and blowing up guards or whatever in the run game. And then even last week, I thought he had some pretty positive moments against Kyle Pitts, in man coverage and covering tight end. So if that can continue trending in a positive direction in the second half of the year, we know they had some issues with tight ends. That would be a big boost for this defense. But I feel like Craig Woodson back there has been playing some solid football for, again, a fourth round rookie right now.
I'm going to go. So you guys gave some good ones. Just to put another one in there, I'm going to go with another new addition, older player. How about Morgan Moses? For all the attention, Will Campbell. And I get why it's all eyes on Will Campbell. I absolutely do. Morgan Moses, and there were some questions about him in camp. He was getting those maintenance days, and, was he banged up? Was he going to make it through the season? Questions about his age and his ability and where's he at? I think he got beat a couple times bad there in the second half of camp that some people were worried. Has it always been perfect? No. Was it the Saints game? I think he had like a rough game. One of the games.
I'm not gonna lie, he's struged against speed in recent weeks, and Drake's kind of helped him out. But he's not like allowing hits on the quarterback. He's been nobody. At no point have we looked at it and said, "All right, is it time to put Marcus Bryant in there?" Like at no point has anybody looked at it and said Morgan Moses looks out of place. And nothing against Morgan Moses, but 34-year-old guy who missed time in camp has played every snap, and nobody's questioned a single one of them.
that's like credit where credit's due. That's impressive. Even if it was the expectation, it's still impressive. I am a big durability guy when it comes to the NFL. And at his age and at that position to play as reliably as he's had, I think is tremendous. Will Campbell's been very good. He's gotten a lot of credit. He deserves it. And again, I get why he's kind of the story on the line. You know, a 34-year-old veteran who's been good is good. What's the big deal? Well, he deserves some credit, I would say. Absolutely. So he's been, you know, the fact that he's been able to handle his, and it's allowed them at times to help make things easier on the rookies, which is important too. So, you know, how long does he here? He signed that 3-year deal. Does he play the whole thing? I don't know. He'd be a 37-year-old tackle, but at least now, like he was supposed to be a bridge guy. He's kind of getting them. It's kind of getting him across the bridge, right? And that's what you're looking for when you signed him. All right, I got 2 more for you about looking ahead, but first, almost dinner time, so Mike's got some advice for you guys here.
Look at the burgers. Oh, baby. Omaha Steaks is the official sponsor of tailgating and the official meat sponsor of the CLNS Media Network. Shout out Omaha Steaks. They have legendary flavor served in stadiums and homes across the entire country. There's no off-season for flavor. And with Heartland quality food delivered right to your door, Omaha Steaks is the best place to get it. Look at the meat on screen. We got burgers, we have fillets, we have all this good stuff. And right now, Omaha Steaks has a 50% off site-wide sale. And right now, if you use code Patriots, you'll get $35 off the top there as well. Look at the filet on screen. It's dynamite. So head over again, omahasteaks.com, code Patriots, and you get $35 off the top of your purchase. Terms apply. See site for details.
I've never heard Mike give a read with that much passion.
You got to. It's Omaha Steaks. They have the best. They have the
Omaha Steaks is great stuff. I love Omaha. I've always loved Omaha Steaks. When I found out they were sponsored, me and Brian don't have them. I'm like, how do we get in on that? But what was the line off the top there? Do we have the ability to run that back?
The official meat sponsor.
No, I mean, that's outstanding. No, the first thing you came in, it was like, look at the steaks.
You got to look at it. It's phenomenal. The video they put together, the package they put together for us.
Look at the steaks.
Look at it. They got steaks. They got burgers. They got chicken. It's outstanding. And right now, code Patriots gets you $35 off the top, and they're 50% off site wide. It's incredible over there. So shut up.
All right. Well, let's Patriots beat, by the way, totally open, having a meat sponsor as well. But let's look at the stakes for the Patriots in the second half here as we wrap this thing up. I do want to look ahead a little bit. Your biggest question facing this team, Brian, heading into the second half of the season?
I'm going to go with the interior of the offensive line. Feels like it's kind of been on a downhill trend lately a little bit. And definitely we talked about Drake has a lot of blame for these sacks, but I feel like, the line deserves some credit in that mix. And you look at Jared Wilson and Garrett Bradbury, that's an undersized duo to begin with. And I think Wilson's future is probably still at center, and now Bradbury's dealing with a hip injury as well. So, and then Michael Winu, like all year, has been kind of hot and cold and coming off one of his worst games against Atlanta there. So the interior of the offensive line, that's definitely a point I'm watching, and feels like we could be in the guard market again this offseason, maybe 2 guards even. So definitely the interior there is on my watch list of concerns.
Soto might be back, not necessarily in the first round, but
Soto
Soto might
draft
be back. That's right. Taylor, biggest question, second half.
Can Drake May protect himself? That's my biggest thing. It is just, this has been a thorn in my side, is not only just taking the hits, but taking hits when he has open receivers. Sometimes receivers that he's looking at, sometimes where it's like, hey man, you got to move off this faster. And I feel like I'm pretty generous, and I try to understand, like, I am not an NFL quarterback. I can't sometimes expect him to go from the left side of the field to the right. But there's times where it's pretty inexcusable. And it's one thing if, he's just missing it. Maybe he finds somebody else, but it's you're leaving bigger plays on the field, because that was happening earlier in the year. And I'm like, you know what? That's fine. That's part of development. But when you are getting hit, you're hurting yourself and the team. That's just not a sustainable business model. It's great when Drake May lets the ball out of his hand. He does incredible things and all these efficiency stats, but passer rating doesn't include sacks. And if it did, I think the perception of him would be a little bit different. So he's been incredible, and I don't want to underrate any of that, but when you look at the tape, it's impossible to ignore that not only is he missing opportunities, but he's putting himself in his harm's way. And I guess it technically makes the offensive line look bad. We now have the stats that give more context, but even still, like sometimes he's leaving his guys out to dry, taking sacks like 4.5 seconds into the play.
Mike.
How about just depth across the board at really most, if not every single position? I mean, and it's kind of why I'm surprised they didn't make at least some sort of move at the deadline. The edge position mainly was the talk of it, where if Chason or Harold Landry go down, they're thin at that position. We'll see it this week with Kayshon Boutte likely or potentially out with the hamstring. They bring Brendan Rice into the practice squad, and he's got great genes with his father, but like he was taken off the scrap heap. You're trying to get Kyle Williams involved. The running back position, they didn't go get one of them. Antonio Gibson's obviously out. Stevenson's hurt now, out again, not at practice. Interior offensive line, Brian mentioned it, but Garrett Bradbury out, potentially a rookie moving in from guard to center. So like this team, and the title of the show is this team, can they really be contenders? And I think if they're healthy, they can genuinely make a solid push here, but it's so hard to bank on staying healthy throughout an entire NFL season. They haven't really been hit that hard with the injury bug quite yet, but if they do, they're going to see just how thin this roster really is. So I'm kind of surprised they didn't make a move, and they don't have a lot of depth at multiple positions here.
Yeah, I think
I'm not the only one that just knocked on wood, by the way.
No, I was literally about to say knock on wood. Like that was going to be mine. Taylor, you mentioned Drake May, and then I was going to expand it, and then Mike did. Like the big question for this team since the beginning of the year when we did some of these win projections was this is how many games they can win with their roster as constituted. And they made improvements. I talked about this, Brian. We talked about this a lot on Catch 22. Call it the top 22 players on Catch 22. We did talk about it on Catch 22, but we also talked about it on Patriots Beat. Call it the top 22 players on their roster, 11 starters on offense, 11 starters on defense. I think they improved there significantly in the offseason. But, it kind of became a house of cards, and it could very quickly go back to what it looked like last year because of their lack of depth, especially at spots like the offensive line or some spots on defense at the second level. So knock on wood again, they've been very lucky injury-wise. Can that continue? And can guys continue to, some of it's obviously luck, but Mike Vrabel talked about it today. The training staff, the nutrition staff, the weight staff, and he said they're going to need to manage some guys here down the stretch. There is an active part teams play in injury prevention. Some teams' training staffs are just better than others. The example I always give is Hunter Henry. I remember nobody wanted to sign him in free agency. Oh, he can't stay healthy. And I think he's missed like 3 games since he's come to New England because the Chargers medical staff blows. I mean, they're a comically bad example. It's not all that bad. Not every team is stabbing their starting quarterback in the lung, but the Patriots have generally in their history been pretty good at this. Credit to Jim Whalen and that staff. And they need it this year. Like those guys, Jim Whalen and Duron Mann, the training staff, like sneaky MVPs of the first half of the season for the Patriots for how healthy they've stayed. Brian, yours a good one too, though. The interior of the offensive line, the cracks are starting to show there. Do we get Ben Brown at some point? What if Garrett Bradbury's banged up? Those two kind of come together. All right. Final question I have for you guys. And we are going to start with Mr. 13 wins himself, Taylor Kyles. We've got half the answers to the test now. They're 7-2. We got a better idea of the teams ahead of them on the schedule. What record do the Patriots finish with? And what seed are they in the AFC playoffs if they make it?
Oh, I love math. I just find it hard to believe that they're not going to hit at least a couple more snags in the season. For as well as they're playing, we have seen cracks. They're playing Lamar Jackson. This game is going to be a huge test, even though the Buccaneers are banged up. And the Bills, again. So I think, honestly, I'll stick with my 13. I think that they have enough games where they should be able to handle business. Like the Jets have lost 2 of their best defensive players. The Dolphins, who knows where they're going to be by the last week. You can probably end up playing your backups and still beat them. And the Bengals, even with Joe Flacco, are very vulnerable. So I think that 2 more losses is fair, but it'll be interesting to see the quality of these games because they need to be playing their best ball after Thanksgiving. And I feel like they're kind of starting to trend, even though they're winning like in the negative direction. So hopefully they can surge and continue to improve.
So you have them going 6-2 in the second half.
Yes.
If that win the division.
If you switched off of 13-4, I would have been very disappointed.
Yeah, I know. You of all people, I was kind of waiting for you to be like 15. They're winning out. Do they win the division? What seed are they?
I think they win the division. I think first or second with that kind of record, right?
Probably. I mean, we'll see what the Colts do. We'll see what I mean, at that point, it's them, the Broncos, and the Colts. I don't think anybody, if they're at 13, the Bills probably aren't getting there because they'll have 2 losses to the Patriots. Can the Chiefs even get to 13? It's 13-4, right? So the Chiefs can't even get there.
Because they're 5-4, right now.
Oh, so I guess they could. They could get to 13-4.
Okay, yeah.
14, 15, 16,
and 17. And the Chiefs, so we can't even act like a win streak would be out.
The only teams at this point that can get to 13-4 are the Chiefs, Jaguars, Chargers, Bills, Steelers, Broncos, Colts, and Patriots. But if the Bills lose another one of the Patriots, they basically have to win out to get to 13-4. And the Steelers, Chargers, and Jags only have 1 loss left. The Chiefs would have no losses left. They would have to win out. So Taylor's them 13-4. I wish we could still say top 2 seed was a bye, but like top 2 seed in the AFC. Brian.
I'll go 12-5. I'll buy 1 more loss.
Okay.
Just because of some of those cracks that we've been seeing. And, you do have that Buffalo, Baltimore back-to-back. And then, this week, I know Tampa is banged up, but you're still going down there against an NFC South opponent you don't know very well. So besides that, like Jets, Bengals, Giants, and then Jets, Dolphins again, like I think they should be able to take care of those games pretty easily. But there are some tougher opponents. And then maybe like there is, even if they beat one of those teams, like maybe there's just one slip up, or who knows, maybe they're resting guys week 18 and that's one of the losses. So I'll go 3 losses down the stretch here.
Mike?
12-5, 3 losses down the stretch, one of which is to Buffalo, who unfortunately Barth goes on a run here, wins the AFC East. Patriots get the 5 seed in the AFC playoffs and have to go on the road at some point as a wild card.
Oh yeah, Brian, did you have them winning the division?
Yeah, Buffalo's got a tough schedule still, even if they come here and win. Like they got Philly, they got a couple tough teams down
Tampa, they go to Houston.
Yeah.
And the Steelers. So but
that is not Houston. I'm just kidding. Their defense is pretty good.
Their defense is filthy. Their offense their defense is bad. So,
But those are the teams that give Buffalo fits. So fair enough.
No, that's fair.
I'm the pessimist of this group. I think they come down the stretch. I'm between 11 and 12 wins. I do think they're going to lose to Tampa. Baltimore on the road has just, as a longtime Patriots fan, that game scares the crap out of me, especially if Lamar is playing. Like they just, whatever, they have their best teams. They don't win in Baltimore on the road. Bengals is sneaky tough if you get in one of these shootouts with Joe Burrow. Like I know the defense sucks,
or Joe Flacco.
Or Joe Flacco, thank you, is what I meant.
Either one, but yeah.
Can Burrow be back by then? Sorry.
No, it's going to be Flacco if he's healthy. Okay. No, Burrow's not going to be back. He's not back till December. I can see the Patriots. Like, I think one of, I'm going to go to 12. So I think they lose against Tampa. I think they lose against the Ravens. And then they lose one of the Bills or the Bengals. I think the Bengals is a sneaky tough game. They'll sweep the 3 games against the New York teams. They'll obviously beat Miami unless that game's meaningless. I'm going to have it 12-5, but I do think Buffalo catches them. I do think Buffalo is going to get their revenge back in Foxborough. It's what veteran teams do. It's very hard to beat those teams twice in the year. I think there's a chance both teams finish with 12 wins. Buffalo ends up with the tiebreaker. And the Patriots are the top wild card team. Now, that will be interesting because the Patriots are the top wild card team. There's a chance they go to a Kansas City or a Pittsburgh, one of those really hard places to play in the first round. That would be a fascinating challenge for a young team.
For what it's worth, they're playing some of the worst defenses in the NFL down there. The Bengals are the worst defense in the league, and they have no run game. If they lose to that team, I'll be pissed. Because that's one where, like, if you have a Mike Vrabel team,
they beat them last year.
Right. Like, and they also play the Giants or bottom 10, the Jets, literally, they play half of the worst pass defense or the worst points per game defense in the NFL.
The Jets, Giants, and Dolphins should all be wins, and that's. What is that? 5 games? 1, 2. That's 4 games right there. The only reason I throw the Bengals in, maybe we talked about it. The pass defense has not been great. The Patriots pass defense has struggled. You're going against Chase. You're going against Higgins. Their tight end play's been good. What?
We have a Gonzo and a Carlton Davis now.
All right. And how's their pass defense looked with those guys?
It's looked good. I think it's very fair to say that they have looked better the past 2 weeks.
So they've looked better.
Obviously,
Look, I'm not
talent
saying
is
they're
a
going to
factor.
lose that game. They should win that game. But if you get one of these games where the pass defense is a little off, and then Drake May maybe turns the ball over because the defense is going to force him, but he's had some self-inflicted turnovers. That if I were to pick like a trap game in the second half of their schedule, it's Cincinnati.
They are allowing 400
Taylor is
yards per
insulted
game.
by the
They
idea.
are so bad. They're the only defense allowing 400 yards, and they're allowing 426.6 per game. Bro, if they lose that game, I will be apoplectic.
What if they
And I'll
lose
be
that?
there. I'll
You
like
have
I'll
to
Stacey,
order-
pull me back. I'm just kidding.
You have to order a bunch of Skyline chili and eat it on air if they lose.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
What
there
if-
we go.
What
Against,
if they
I
lose
will
like 50
destroy my
to
body.
40?
Shout out Omaha Steaks.
All right.
That'd
Well,
be-
look,
honestly, that'd be
again,
pretty fun. That'd be pretty fun.
they should win. They should win. No, what has to happen is Taylor has to go on with Trags and get the full Trags experience. That's what should have
Okay,
to happen.
I'll take that.
That's a trap game. The Patriots should win it, and if they win that, again, you lose to the Bucs. Call it one of the Bills or Ravens, and you're sitting pretty. You're gonna have a chance to win the division. All right, let me do this.
It's like when Mike said they were going to lose to the Browns.
Take the teams out with MVP quarterbacks, and that doesn't include the Bengals. Yeah, they were never going to lose to the Browns, Mike. Come on, take the teams out with healthy.
Sorry.
Take the teams out with healthy MVP quarterbacks. So Joe Burrow's not going to be healthy for this game. Healthy MVP quarterbacks aside, which game scares you the most down the stretch? I think Cincinnati is the clear answer.
No.
Jackson Dart.
No,
Yeah,
come
honestly,
on, Brian. Come on. If they had neighbors in Scatabo, I'd be more worried about that game. That team is way too banged up for me to be worried about.
They also have a ferocious defensive line, which could give the Patriots
my
problems. So,
But that's a home game. It's the week before the bye. They're gonna be gassed up for the week off. I like that. Like the Bengals spot also makes me nervous. Right on the road.
you have the mini bye though before
They
that.
do have
game.
mini bye before. That's fair.
I think it's the Bills still. Like they still have
MVP
James
quarterback.
Harden.
I begrudgingly say MVP quarterback. I said aside from MVP.
No,
obviously the Bills
without him, they still. I thought you meant like if you don't consider him, I still think the Bills are the best team that they have.
Oh no, I just meant taking out those games because the Bills and the Ravens games are obviously the scariest down. Yeah, no, the Bills
but like
games.
the Ravens don't scare me outside. If they didn't have Lamar, they wouldn't scare me that much.
So if Lamar's not healthy, the Patriots should go into that game and blow doors.
That's what I was thinking.
But
it's like of the shitty teams, which one scares you? Is that what we're?
Yeah, that's basically the games that they should win, like clearly should win. Which one do they have the best chance to lose? I think it's Cincinnati. New York's not. The Giants is not a terrible answer. Neither of us is going to say the Jets or the Dolphins, unless you want to do the Week 18 seedings decided. How fun would it be to be on the other side of that game this year? The Dolphins come in trying to get the first overall pick, starring Quinn Ewers as Joe Milton. He starts lighting up like Kobe Minor and Charles Woods and the Patriots, depth secondary. Do you imagine covering that game 2 years in a row?
I know.
And that's in Gillette.
So yeah. A freezing cold Quinn Ewers just dicing it up.
Freezing Quinn Ewers just lighting up the practice squad.
Mike McDaniel's outfit, if he's still there, is going to be hilarious in the freezing cold Gillette Stadium week.
He's still going to be there. I can't. That's just organizational malpractice. Unless they're trying to get Tua to retire because they don't want to have to cut him and pay the dead money on his contract. All right, let's wrap it up with this real quick. Who's Jets starting quarterback next year? Since I brought up Tua.
We were talking about this in the facility for everybody who's watching.
Kyler Murray. Brian says Kyler Murray.
Unless they can draft,
Purdy,
if they can draft Mendoza, I think they take Mendoza. But
if Aaron Glenn's still there, I could see it being Mendoza because Mendoza actually reminds me a lot of Goff.
Yeah.
So maybe draft Mendoza, sign Brock Purdy. So if Brock Purdy plays well, you have a guy that you can develop behind the scenes. He doesn't have to get forced out there. And if Brock Purdy gets hurt, you have a good guy to put out there.
Purdy just signed that massive deal.
Yeah, they'd have to trade for Purdy. So the conversation about this was the Jets had all these first-round picks. Is there a quarterback worth taking, or do you trade one of the first-round picks for a quarterback? Some people mentioned Kyler Murray. Joe Milton would be pretty funny.
I'd love that.
Brock Purdy, if the Niners want to get out of that contract. I also threw out the idea of Tua. If you're the Dolphins and the Jets call you and say, we'll give you a first-round pick for Tua and take the money, don't you have to do that?
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
You should not be
Dolphins.
trading him in the division.
Please. Get Tua out of the division, please.
Hendon Hooker.
I don't know about
He was
starting.
He was with them in Detroit.
Rich,
He just got
I don't know.
from
he
somewhere.
got cut today, didn't he?
Who's Christian Gonzalez's brother-in-law?
Oh,
Who was
David
on-
Blah.
David
Blah.
Blah.
Yeah, David Blau.
Yeah.
He was in Detroit.
Where's he?
Yeah, right.
Hopefully
somebody
happily
said-
married.
Somebody said Anthony Richardson. That would be an interesting one.
Oh, that would be a good one. Joe
Like,
Flacco.
If they wanted a reclamation project. So I said flight, but like, shouldn't they have learned the lesson about the 40-year-old quarterback
No.
after Aaron
we should
Rodgers?
not.
You're right. Well, it's
Yeah.
it is the Jets, so we can't apply logic to it. But anyway, we'll get more into that in the offseason. You guys got anything else you want to hit on?
I'm good.
I think we're good.
All right.
Good stuff.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up there. Thanks everybody for tuning in to this crossover episode. We'll try to do one more, at least one more this season. We'll definitely have one at the end of the season. Like maybe we mix one more in there. We'll see. Again, there's a lot to talk about with this team. So what's up?
Bye week, maybe?
Yeah.
Bye week
Yeah.
crossover could play. Bye week crossover could
First-
absolutely play.
First round of the playoff bye week. That one?
First round of the playoffs. Bye. There
Hey,
you
now
go.
it's on.
Number one
Hey.
overall seed potentially on the table. If you follow Patriots CLNS on Twitter and you subscribe to the Patriots Press Pass YouTube page, you will get notified when we have the next crossover. Also, when Mike and Taylor have Pats Daily, when me and Brian have Pats Beat, we'll be back tomorrow with our game preview of Tampa. Mike and Taylor. Well, first off, Taylor, you have the Steph Diggs interview. Is that out yet, or is that dropping later?
That will be dropping on Friday.
On Friday, so make sure to stick around for that. I haven't even seen it, but I'm sure it's excellent.
It was honestly good. I think that's the best one that we've done so far this season.
And what do you guys have coming tomorrow?
Tomorrow I'm trying to get a guest. I'm working on it, but if not, we will do a mailbag.
So there you go. Tune in
Either
for
way.
that. All right. For Brian Hines, Mike Kadlick, Taylor Cowles, I'm Alex Barth. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time.